On what? On what?
Today, 17 hours.
Oh.
Yeah.
And I bet they've started their meeting.
Yeah, we're here.
Okay.
All right. Hi. So here's to hoping you can hear me. We continue our discussion of lecture number 13, and the plan is to to wrap up or to conclude, I suppose. But as I am just downloading the slides, I just wanted to find out if people have any questions, concerns or comments or additions based on what we discussed last time.
Sir.
Yes, sir.
So, like the previous quiz, this quiz will also open at 10 tomorrow?
No, the email that was sent through said midnight, so 00000, and then it closes at 23:59. So I want to make sure that you attempt it tomorrow.
All right, sir. Thank you.
Are there any questions with regards to what we were looking at last week? Okay, let me just download the slides and then we're good to go then. Second. So if I were you, right, what I would probably start doing now is to just try and start putting into practice some of these things we've been discussing, right? Try and see if you can perhaps implement these so things like backup strategies, for instance, right? Can you manage to implement the so-called 3-2-1 strategy using your it could be like your resources from ICT 1110, perhaps resources from these other courses. And if I were you, what I would be doing is thinking about how you get to, or how you can preserve the most important things, right? Like assignments. Bad things do happen. There are instances when a lecturer will perhaps give you a much lower score than you got, and you're told to resubmit your assignment or something. You want to make sure that you back up these things. There was a question?
Yeah, all three strategies of backing up data, they applicable when you are using Dropbox?
By the three strategies, what do you mean the three strategies?
Oh, I mean incremental backup, full backup, and the differential backup.
Yes, because what you're doing, that's a brilliant question, by the way. You see, what you're doing when you're backing up is you're just copying across folders, files, essentially, not just folders, but files. So regular files and directories, that's all you're doing. The difference comes in when you're looking at, incremental, differential, and full backups. The difference comes in how you're doing this, how you're copying across the files. Do you understand this? So I could choose to say, let's see. I could choose to say, let's say I'm backing up ICT 1110, ICT 1110 resources, right? So these are lecture slides and whatnot. So slides, assignment, assessments, if we can call them assessments. What else do we have? Labs, I suppose, right? You see, if I decide to say I'm going to implement a backup strategy that enables me to conduct like full backups on a weekly basis, because you wouldn't want to do full backups on a daily basis, right? That would be insane, unless if you're a person who has a lot of money. You understand what I mean? Like if I was to showcase Lighton's ICT 1110 directory. You see the size? This is 394 megabytes of data. This is a full year course, assuming, right? Right? Assuming that we were going to be doing this on a daily basis for the entire year, 365 days, right? What we are saying is beginning January 20, and this is a conservative thing here, right? bear with me. Let's say we're just going to make an assumption here. Let's say January 1, 2020. Let's just assume that. Okay, yeah, this is a horrible thing to do, but anyway, let's just assume that. Let's just assume that our data is growing at a rate of 1% on a daily, 0.1% on a daily basis, right? 0.1% on a daily basis. Currently, we have 394, right? 394. So today minus what? Okay, yeah, today minus January 1st is it's 264 days, right? So let's just assume, we're complicating things here. Let's just assume at the beginning of the year, we had, actually we can use 264 days, 264 days with a growth rate of 0.1. We can just say this, actually the growth is 0.1, so it's 0.1 relative to, anyway, let's just make an assumption here. Let's just assume we are beginning, this is January 1st, and we begin with 394 megabytes of data for ICT 1110, right? We know it could be slightly less, or significantly less actually, because we're halfway through the year here. But here's the thing. Let's say January 1, right? We have 300 and 0.1 here, but we have 394 megabytes of data. If we're backing up on a daily basis, right? 364 days here. Now, doing it on a daily basis would be insane, really. But let's just give you an example of what would happen, how the data would grow. Let's say within a two month span, right? I'm just going to go all the way up to the 1st of March here, right? Observe, if we are saying we have this much data on this day, then on, this is like a 0.1 here. Here we are going to have this plus this times is growing at a rate of 0.1%, right? And 0.1% is an overkill here. But you notice that as we are doing these full backups on a daily basis, this is what we'll be backing up, because we are backing up essentially. This is insane here, but we should lock this. I don't know if have you looked at Excel formulas in EDU 1020? We should lock this, right? Have you looked at that? Hello?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Oh, okay. I'm sure you will anyway. So, assuming, and let me just change the formatting here. It's a bit weird. Let me just change the format so that. Do you see what's going on here? If I was interested in doing daily backups, right, of ICT 1110 the ICT 1110 resources, and assuming that my data is growing at a relative rate of 0.1% every day. Now 0.1% is perhaps overkill, but 0.01% every day. This is what would be happening. I would need space. On the first day I start backup, 1st of January, I would need 394. I'd have to find the space somewhere. It's 394 megabytes, right? The following day, I have slightly more, 397 megabytes. And as the days progress, the data is growing, right? Now, if you look at what we've done here, in 2 months, in just 2 months, what we would need is a total space of this much here. Right now, if you want to convert this in gigabytes, I suppose you can do that. We've done this already. I'll need 31 GB of space. If you're doing this on Dropbox, you will realize that this would be next to impossible, because it would be expensive for you. It would be expensive for you to implement a full backup strategy that involves you backing up this sort of data onto Dropbox, because in 2 months' time you'd really be spending quite a bit of money here, right? Dropbox. I don't know if you've bothered to look into the pricing plans for Dropbox, right? Dropbox pricing. I mean, they have like these business plans that you can take advantage of, but but I guess we'll go for individuals here. But you want to be very smart about how you, this is where the thinking comes in, right? You weigh options. If you're a person who has a significant amount of money, then it's not a problem. Just buy enough space, maybe 2 terabytes of data on Dropbox, and you forget it, right? Observe, they are saying here that you have the free tier, which everybody uses. You have access to just free space of about 2 gigabytes, but you can pay $10 per month for 2 terabytes of storage space. All right, now I'll be the first one to tell you, I don't, for me, I know it would be insane for me to start doing this. I wouldn't pay $10. I personally wouldn't terabytes of data. You know why? That's like 200, what, close to about 200 kwacha, right? 200 kwacha, the Zambian currency, right? 200 Zambian kwacha. In a year, I would have to spend, per month, I would have to spend 2,400 on space, right? Within 5 years, it will be slightly more because this grows, right? So you have to think about this very carefully. It is possible, right? You can have full backups like that, but what would be ideal for you is, again, assuming a growth rate of 0.1, right? So we have full backups in column number B. Full backup.
Sir, just a question.
Yes.
If we're having full backups there and the data is increasing by 0.01, by 2 months, will it accumulate to 31 GB?
Yes, because listen, on the 1st of January, you will have 394 megabytes that you are backing up. The following day, you will back up 397.94 megabytes. On the 3rd day of the month of January, you will back up 401 megabytes, right? On the 29th of February, you will back up 708 megabytes. The thing with a full backup is you're getting a complete snapshot of whatever data you're backing up. That is where the problem is. It's like you're replicating things, right? Today, I back up my machine. Let's say I'm doing a full backup of my machine. Today, I will back up. Maybe if I use my machine, it will be slightly bearable, easy. Observe this partition here, right? SDA2 here. Oh, the SDS. Today, if I'm doing a full backup of my computer, I will back up 422 GB of data. Tomorrow, because I'm continuously working on my machine, I generate data, right? This is what I do for a living. I create content. I mean, in my personal life, at work, I create slides. I'm creating videos and whatnot. I'm downloading videos that have been recorded on Google Meet. I'm dumping them on my machine. Tomorrow, I will have more than 422 GB. I will have to back up that use space. Day after tomorrow, I'll have slightly more. I'll have to back up the space that I would have used up. The issue with a full backup is you have more or less like the same amount of data. The data that you had prior, together with what has changed, is what you will back up, right? So yes, you will have 31 because we are just adding up everything here. Everything we have here is what we've added up, and we just divided by, yeah. So here's the thing, but smart way to think about this is, think about this for a second, right? The differential backup is, you're saying, assuming a growth rate of 0.01, right? What you're saying is that, and this is what, 1% actually, right? This is, assuming your data is going at a rate of 1% per day. Perhaps we're reaching here, but bear with me. With a differential backup, what you do is you decide to say maybe every month, at the beginning of every month, I shall do a full backup, right? And then every other day, all the other days other than the first of the month, I shall do what do you call this? I shall perform differential backups, right? This is where people ask, why are we being taught this in Excel? This is where, because I learned Excel myself, I can do some of these things, right? I hope you're thingy. I guess I should have just copied the formula here, right? All right. So assuming you're saying on the first of every month you're going to do a full backup, but on other days you're going to do a differential backup. What you'd be doing is on the first of the month you have this data. On the second day, because your data is growing at a rate of 0.1, what you just back up is the offset or the difference between the data that you currently have. The data that you currently have is the original set of data times the growth rate. I'm going to put the thing here. Minus that, right? Oh, something is wrong here. Oh, okay. So the original data, which is this full backup, plus the growth rate. What am I doing? It's original data. What the? It's original. It's the original. The growth, which is this times 0.1. There's something not right here. Minus the full backup, right? Which is supposed to be this. Why is it still negative? There's something I'm not doing right here. Oh, that's I see what's happening here. We're supposed to add D3, right? This is the thing here. Why are we learning Excel? Oh, this is why you're learning Excel, right? So we have this, and then I'm just going to I need to lock G. Right. So you notice that I also need to lock D3, I think, as well, because it's a full backup, at least for this, right? Okay. I don't want this to. I need to lock D3 here. Or we can just say, okay, this is the same formula. I guess we can just drag it down and just lock. We need to lock. Do we need to lock D3 here or this D3 here? I think. I hope. Are we locking all of the D3s, I wonder? Don't worry about this. Confusing myself with the Excel formulas here. I shouldn't be able to, but if I lock them, the thing is, if I lock them, it's which makes sense actually, because it's going to be the same. No, it shouldn't be the same thing. I should be looking at. So with a differential backup, scratch that to start from scratch, right? With a differential backup, right? You're saying for the first of the month, you have this. The data, right, as of the first of the month, the entire full backup. But every other day, all you're doing is you're saying you're going to back up the difference between how much has changed relative to the full backup. I didn't want to confuse that, so I will lock this here, right? And you notice that the data that you start backing up is significantly less, actually, not even slightly here. It's significantly less than when you're doing a full backup. Can you see this?
Kindly showcase an example on how you're actually doing the calculations, because all I'm seeing is figures change. I understand what you're trying to do, but how you're doing it is what I'm not seeing.
What do you mean? Well, so for differential backup, right? Observe, a differential backup is relative to a full backup. Agreed, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes? Right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if it's relative to a full backup, and we are saying that the strategy, the hypothetical scenario we have right now, is assuming that you're performing these full backups once every month, on the first of every month. Then on the 1st of January, we shall have a full backup, and on the 1st of February, we shall have a full backup. But every other day will be a backup that's relative to the full backup itself. So on the 2nd of January, 2020, the data that we're going to back up is going to be the difference between the data as of the 2nd itself relative to the full backup. So the full backup is 394 megabytes. The data on the 2nd, the complete set of data that you have on the 2nd is 397.94 megabytes. The difference, this minus this, is going to be the differential. The differential is just the difference between the last full backup and the current snapshot of data that you're backing up. So this is the data we're backing up. We're just reusing what you have full backup side here. We are just getting the difference between the current snapshot and the full backup. On the 3rd day, the current snapshot minus the full backup. So this value is going to be this minus this. Observe the formula here. We're just subtracting this from this. Here it's going to be this minus this. Here it's going to be this minus this, right? And then when you go on the 31st, it's going to be this minus that, right? But on the 1st of February, we need to do a full backup, so we'll just back up this entire thing here. And this was wrong here, we'll just do that. Then we start redoing the differential again. On the 2nd of February, it's going to be this minus that, right? And now I have to shift the formula to D34, right? So here it's going to be, and you notice what's happening here. Because our strategy involves a full backup on the 1st of every month, but then a differential every other day. The interesting thing here is that you are resetting the whole strategy on the 1st of every month. You notice that there's a gradual increase in data that you are backing up, the differentials here, right? 3, 7, 11, 16, 20, 24, 28, 32, 36, all the way up to the 31st, we have 137.05 megabytes. But on the 2nd of February, it's like we're resetting. We start backing up 5 megabytes. Why? Because this 5 is relative to the last full backup. And it happens, the last full backup on the 2nd of February happens to be the 1st of February, right? Here, it's relative to this, which is cool. Cool because if you look at the total, and this is the interesting thing now, if you compare, right? If you compare, and I'll move this thing here, I'll just cut it out, and then I'll move it here. If you compare if you compare what we did before, total space that would be used when you do differential backups when compared with full backups, observe. Instead of 31 GB, right, megabytes, GB, what we have now is 5 GB for a differential. You understand this?
Yes, sir.
Okay. These are things to think about here. I'm guessing these are some of the decisions that some of you are going to be good luck working that job, by the way, where you, I don't know, where you just whole life is just backing. I tried it. It was not for me anyway. It was fun at first, but the money was good. But just sitting and then backing up data. Okay. So, but here's a twist, a plot twist. So you notice the difference, obvious advantages. Instead of you spending money on 31 GB of data for 2 months, you just spend 5 GB of data. It's a fraction, right? A fraction of this data here. This is what? This is just you'd be spending 16% when comparing full backup. But on the incremental backups is where it gets even more interesting, right? Because for incremental backups, assuming that you do increments here, you'd obviously need a full backup, right? At some stage, let's say you have a full backup here. Full backup here. And then you have increments, right? So the idea behind the incremental backup is now the backup is no longer relative to the full backup, but it's relative to the last backup. whether it's incremental, differential. Usually when you implement a strategy that involves incremental backup, then what you have is a situation where you conduct, let's say, full backups on the first of every month, and then you have incremental backups every other day, right? So incremental backup on the second will be the same as the differential, right? Because what you're doing is you're saying it's going to be relative to the full backup, but then going forward, what you're doing is you're just getting in fact, what you're doing with this is you're just getting the difference between this backup and the previous backup, and then we're just going to drag this, and it's probably going to be the same here because the growth rate is the same, right? Notice almost the same. Almost is not exactly the same, but almost the same, right? This is where it gets extremely interesting, because observe, if I just, okay, I'm just going to go all the way down here, right? Here, but what I will do here is I will get the snapshot from here. This is where it gets really interesting, because if you look at because we're backing up the increments, just the increments, you notice that the data we are backing up relative to differential backups is far much less, right? Far much less, because it's just the deltas we're getting, just the deltas relative to the previous backup, not the last full backup, but just the previous backup. So if we do a differential today, it's relative to yesterday's backup, whether it was the full backup or if it was incremental backup. Tomorrow we're going to do a backup relative to today's backup, right? So just the deltas, which is why it's even better here, right? So if we were to calculate how much data we are using up here, observe, I'll just drag this formula, right? There we go. With an incremental backup, all you need is 1 GB instead of 5 GB for a differential backup, or instead of 31 GB for a full backup. But remember that you are going to feel the pain when you're doing the opposite. When you're restoring this data, it's going to take significantly longer for you to restore incremental backups, because there are multiple backup sets that you need to incorporate into whatever it is you're restoring. I hope this must sink in. And what should sink in here is how those aspects we discussed get to change. Cost, space, throughput, or the speed, the efficiency, when it comes to either backing up or restoring the data. And by taking into account all those different aspects, you get to decide, you make an informed decision, say, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to implement a strategy where I do full backups every month, differential backups every week, incremental backups every other day. Or I will do full backups every month, incremental backups every other day. I don't know.
Sir.
Yes, sir.
So this means that incremental backups are dependent on differential and full backups, right?
No. Incremental backups are dependent on the previous backup. Whether it's a full backup or an incremental backup or a differential backup is inconsequential. Yeah.
Also, you don't necessarily need a differential backup for you to do an incremental backup.
No, you just need a previous backup, that's all. Now, usually, traditionally, this previous backup has always been, the initial backup that you perform has always been a full backup. So let's say you decide to say over the weekend, instead of playing around, playing these funny games or just mindless browsing Facebook, you decide to implement a backup strategy where you'll be doing a full backup every month and then maybe differential backups every week or something. Or whether you're going to do a full backup on the first of every month and then incremental backups every other day. Irrespective of which strategy you decide to do, the initial thing you're going to have to do is perform a full backup. The starting point, right? It's like our big bang now, right? The starting point is going to have to be a full backup, and then everything else is related to that full backup. What you do beyond that is inconsequential. If you look at what's happening on the 1st of January here, we have this thing here, right? The full backup that we have here. This is the starting point for everything. You have to think about this let this sink in, right? And I think now would be a good time, once we're done with this lecture series, to send through like some simple lab questions that you should work through, a practical lab session. And I think there's a slide to that effect. All right. Good stuff. So we continue our discussion from where we left off.
By the way, Dr. Lighton, before you even go to discussion, with differential backup, I think I find this to be more let me use the word efficient. But since we are looking on both ways in terms of backing up and restoring, I want you to tell me if it's correct when we are restoring. Like if I'm doing a differential backup every month, I do a full backup every month and then differential backups every other day. For example, I do a full backup today. Maybe today, let's assume today is the beginning of the month. When I do the next full backup, the second month, I can delete all the previous differentials and then remain with the last differential and the first full backup. Then wouldn't that be great in terms of preserving the space and working out the restoration process?
Well, it would be, right? But again, you have to look at the bigger picture here. Why you're backing up the data in the first place? When you're dealing with sensitive information, you are discouraged from deleting data. You never delete data. Do not delete data. Why? Because think about this for a second. Because something might have happened between the 1st and the 31st of January that will not be captured in the full backup on the 1st of February. Do you understand? What you're assuming here, right? What you are assuming by saying you're going to delete the previous backup sets is that no delete operation is being performed. Think for a second here. Let's say I did a full backup on the 1st of September and I expect to do another full backup on the 1st of October. Between 1st of September and 1st of October, I might just decide to delete some files in this directory. When I delete those files, the full backup that I'm going to perform on the 1st of October will be agnostic from the files that I deleted. Do you understand? You never delete data, especially when you're dealing with sensitive data. Do not do that, right? You must preserve the data. Unless if you have some explicit retention period indicated in your policy to say, our retention policy says that we must only keep data for a year. Now, I'm ashamed to say I don't have a retention policy for ICT 1110 courses. Maybe I should come up with a retention policy here, where I'll say 5 years after generating data for ICT 1110, I can delete the data. I don't care, right? But right now, I mean, I don't have a retention policy. Right now, I archive everything from the time I started teaching ICT 1110. Everything is backed up, right? Meticulously, actually. If somebody comes to me today and comes up with a funny story, oh, I wrote an assignment and I didn't see my results, I'll tell them you're lying because, well, first I'll check my records, right? Because I have my records from as far back as 2018 when I started teaching this course, right? I don't delete data, right? Unless you only delete data when you have a retention policy that tells you to say you can delete this data after a year or after 5 years or something. All right, but remember here that when you're restoring data, the opposite is true, right? So when you're backing up data, when you're backing up data, right? Backup. In terms of backup speed, the behavior of speed is what is faster is full, then differential, then incremental, right? Sorry. This is the order, right? Of what is faster when you're backing up data. You start with incremental is faster, followed by differential, then full backup. But when you're restoring the data, the opposite is true, right? What is faster is full, then differential, then incremental, right? I mean, you can look at these things from so many different angles here, like cost, obviously, in terms of cost, backup cost, you know that full is more expensive, right? Followed by differential. So you're just looking at the space here, right? Followed by incremental. And when you're looking at it from the perspective of size is the same as cost, because I mean, cost is influenced by size, obviously. These are things you should be thinking about here. Let's continue our conversation. All right, so this question has become like a review of backup strategies. Just to remind us that, guys, tomorrow there's a test, a quiz that's open at midnight, right? So a minute after 23:59 today, the assessment will be available. It's closing at 23:59 tomorrow, so take note. It's a pretty straightforward assessment, really. All right, so just to kind of stitch everything together, to wrap up here, we'll continue our conversation and just look at a few operations, right? Additional operations to do with secondary storage. It turns out that one of the other things that you end up doing or performing, so far as storage medium is concerned, here is this whole notion of formatting the storage medium, right? So wiping it clean, or cleansing it, if you will, right? And it's usually the case that when on initial use of a storage medium, you perform some sort of formatting operation, and it's encouraged, by the way. When you buy a thumb drive for the first time, format it before you use it. There've been stories where people say, I bought a USB stick and it had a virus on it or something, right? So just format it before you start using it. You never know what sort of hidden malware, these manufacturers might have placed in there so that they track. Sometimes it might not be a virus, right? Increasingly, people are trying to track what you do, right? So they might be interested in tracking how you're using data or something. So just you format it on initial use, right? Also, a formatting process is what you almost always go through when you're installing a new operating system for the first time. If you remember the process we went through when we were playing around with VirtualBox way back, when you're installing Ubuntu, you're asked if you want to format the disk. Essentially wiping it clean, right? And it turns out that there's really two main types of formatting processes. There's what they call low-level formatting and high-level formatting. And with low-level formatting, one of the things you can do is you can divide the storage into different logical volumes, right? So you have the opportunity to partition it, essentially. A high-level format, on the other hand, is more or less like a superficial operation that just deletes the data, but also gives you the opportunity to specify a file system, right? Associated with that storage medium. So is it NTFS or FAT32 or FAT16 or something? What you want to do in either cases, whether it's a low-level format or high-level format, is you want to make sure that you back up the data before you format. Because when you format a storage medium, everything goes, right? So you must back up the data. So you must perform a prerequisite operation before you format any storage medium, unless if you know what you're doing, is you must back up the data on that storage medium. Once you back up, then you can perform the formatting process. And lo and behold, surprise, surprise, what you need for you to be able to format a storage medium is you need utility software. Thankfully, most operating systems, because this is an extremely important part of file system management, remember that's a core part of an operating system, utility software that allows you to perform formatting operations is shipped together, it's bundled with your operating system. So in my case, for instance, I have fdisk installed by default, right, with Ubuntu. I know Windows probably has like funny things like check disk. I don't know if it has fdisk as well, right? This is shipped together with my operating system. But what you can do is you can actually download third-party utility software tools that will allow you more control. In most instances, these are utility software tools that are more user-friendly. I've been showcasing gparted a lot, really nice tool. Nice user interface, pretty easy to work with, right? Again, because this is a sensitive operation, you need to log in with a root account, right? Very easy to use, very intuitive, really. So you can delete the partition and then format it if you want to. Let's see if we can plug in something here and try and see if we can perform a format. I'm just looking at the time here, but I don't know if it's there, but looks like it's not there. Anyway, so you can download third-party tools like Gparted or Petition Magic. I don't know if Petition Magic is still in use these days, but used to use a lot of that when I was a student myself. Doesn't look like this thing wants to work anyway. Okay, that's fine. I wanted to just showcase this whole notion of formatting data, right? But it appears, maybe I can showcase with my GoPro. I know it's connected. It appears most of my things don't want to, they're misbehaving today. I'm not sure why. Wow. Anyways, that's fine. That's fine. But anyway, so you need utility software tools for you to be able to perform this operation. Just like backing up, right? Software is important. You notice, software, very important part of what we do. So another partition and another operation that you tend to perform on storage medium is this whole notion of separating it into contiguous logical regions, right? So it's a process called partitioning. So you split up your storage medium into logical regions, right? That operating system persists to be separate from each other, right? And there's different reasons for why you might want to do this. A common application, especially on operating systems like Windows, is you might want to separate the system files associated with the operating system from the data that you work with. It turns out that can be instrumental in trying to avoid the spread of an infection, right? When you're infected by a virus, for instance. So you create different partitions that your operating system will view as maybe a C and a D. I don't know if people have seen this on Windows, right? You have, oh, I have a C drive and a D drive and an E drive or something, right? It means your storage, your internal hard disk is separated. It's separated into partitions, right? My current storage medium is not separated into any partitions, not explicitly anyway. All right, so another application is you might want to separate the space being used by virtual memory that you've created, right? So swap space, and I think this is the case on Linux by default when your swap space is created. I do believe it's this thing I'm viewing as tempfs or something. I could be wrong here. So this is created on a separate petition, or you can create it on a separate petition, right? Right, and it turns out that this can be tremendously useful when you're working on a computer system that requires that you perform regular and consistent backups. If you separate your data files that you work on with your operating system files, backing up the data files is tremendously easy because all you do is you just make a snapshot of the partition and you're done, right? Right now, if you look at my thing here, I can't just wake up and say I'll back up 422 GB because guess what? This 422 GB happens to include operating system files, which are useless. I don't need to back up those files, right? I'm only interested in backing up data that I'm creating or generating. Again, I mean, there's countless utility software tools that you can use for you to partition your storage medium. Usually the case that, so operations like partitioning and formatting are performed by the same type of software. So Gparted will allow me to partition my storage mediums if I want to, right? Notice what you're doing is you're not partitioning a storage device, it's a storage medium, right? Good stuff. So, I mean, just to stitch everything together here, I mean, so some of the things that you might want to look at as you're evaluating these different types of storage mediums is from the perspective of, let's say, the user requirements, right? Are you concerned about the fact that you might want to work with either a hard drive or the specific? Are you interested in a specific type of technology? Is it a hard drive you want, or is it a tape that you want to use, for instance? Are you concerned with the fact that you might want to make changes to whatever data you're backing up, right? So reuse the storage medium, in which case you have to think long and hard about whether or not the device you're going to be using is read-only or it's writable. This is especially the case for optical storage, like CDs, right? Read-only devices like CDs, compact discs. So something to think about. Are you do you have access to a computer system that has the necessary ports you're going to use to plug in these storage mediums or storage devices, right? These are things to think about. So something like, if I can double back to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 we were using as an example as here, for you to be able to plug in number 8 into your computer system, you must ensure that your computer system has a port that will allow you to plug in this adapter here. If not, then bye-bye to that, right? Of course, I mean, you could just as well easily have a workaround. You know that your smartphone will almost always have a provision for you to slot in the SD card. So if you don't have an adapter, what you can do is you can plug this to your smartphone, tether your smartphone, and then connect your computer to your smartphone and be able to move data wirelessly, right? So different scenarios here. But these are things to think about anyway. Is this making sense?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then so the obvious other things from a different perspective of looking at how to evaluate the storage here is a perspective of different characteristics associated with the storage, right? So the traditional aspects like speed, capacity, portability, right? The convenience, compatibility, right, with the computer system. So in terms of speed here, are you more interested in something that's going to enable you to quickly back up data to the storage medium? You don't want to spend more than an hour backing up data, right? In which case you rule out things like tape. Capacity. Do you have the money to buy massive amounts of data, right? In which case you have to look for cheaper storage, right? Because you want to spend as less money as possible. And also, maybe perhaps you want to make sure that this backup is being done on one storage medium, in which case you'd want to gain access to maybe a 5 terabyte hard disk, for instance, or hard drive, right? Portability. Are you the sort of person who wants to be able to move around with these storage mediums, right? In which case you'd have to think long and hard about investing money into something that has the equivalent weight of a 2-kilogram bag of sugar, right? Nakambala here. Stay away from one. This thing is heavy, right? Right. So portability, right? You want something maybe that can fit into your pocket or something, right? Something that can fit into your small backpack, yeah. And then the convenience as well. Convenience goes hand in hand with things like portability, something that you can easily move around with, something that you can easily plug into a computer system without really having to worry about whether or not the computer that you're going to plug it into has the necessary port that you need, right? And compatibility as well. If you use an older computer system, it may not have these more modern fancy ports perhaps, right? So something to think about there. And then in summary here, just a reminder that, again, the best way of thinking about all of these things we've been talking about, perspective with different characteristics, is latching on to the so-called memory hierarchy, size, capacity, the availability of power for you to be able to access the data on the storage medium, for instance, right? And then interesting aspects like what typically happens, and we're looking at the memory as a whole here, including primary memory, what the behavior of the memory as you're moving away from the CPU here. So things like size, the throughput or the efficiency or the speed, and the relative cost, right? Right, again, just putting everything into perspective here, your CPU would be somewhere here, right? Would be somewhere located somewhere here. You notice that things like network attached storage are further away, right? It should be here, further away from your CPU, right? But these other things like RAM and ROM are much closer here. And so are the direct attached storage, right? Things that you plug in directly into your computer system, right? This is what we're talking about here. Anyway, listen, I thought what would be interesting here is I think I will share, I will share a lab, a more practical oriented lab. I do encourage you to work through it, especially the implementation of a backup strategy. It would be nice that going forward, beyond first year, you're able to take care of your data, because it turns out that increasingly data is becoming a very important commodity right? People are raking in, right? This is how important it is. So you better learn how to take care of your data. So we'll set up a lab session. But what I would like you to do, the lab session will mostly be centered around homework number 2 here. But what I would like you to do for homework number 1 is just try and see if you can compare and contrast. If you can think about other things that you can take into account when you're comparing things like storage, flash storage, magnetic storage, and cloud-based storage, or network-attached storage, right? It's important that we understand these things. It's a pity that you haven't looked at computer networks and the internet, but that's fine. I'm sure you'll be able to revisit this once you look at that in 1020. And then this will be carved out as part of your lab. But what I want you to do is, I do highly encourage you to do this, is let's implement a 3-2-1 backup strategy where we'll be able to back up maybe our ICT 1110 data, right? So the notes, the assignments, when it's graded. Remember, I used to, at some point I told you to say, can you scan your assignments and then upload them to Moodle? What you were doing, ladies and gentlemen, you were implicitly backing it up. So that particular data was backed up to Moodle. It's there, right? You can easily recover it at your own time. But what would be nice is if you can implement a nice 3-2-1 backup strategy where you'll be able to synchronize data to your Dropbox folder. If you don't have a Dropbox account, please go to this link. Full disclosure, this is an affiliate link. I will get space if you click on that link and you create an account. Please create it so that Lighton has space, right? So that Lighton doesn't pay money for additional space. And then so you implement this 3-2-1 strategy using Dropbox, Google Drive, using your UNZA signed email account, and of course your personal device. So it could be a mobile device or your laptop. It would be nice, right? And then maybe going forward, you can automate this backup so that every day you are backing up this data, or maybe every week, right, for ICT 1110. So at the first of every month, you have a full backup, and then every other day, every other week, you just have maybe weekly differential backups or something. I want you to think about why you would want to do this weekly instead of daily, right? We can have a conversation about this later on. Think about this for a second. Would you, if you are implementing a 3-2-1 backup strategy and you do full backups, differential backups, would you be backing up data every week, every day, right? Every hour, every minute? Believe it or not, there are systems out there where backups are done every hour. That's how important backups are. All right, so these are the things we just spoke about in lecture series number 13, right? Day after tomorrow, we begin our discussion of, I want us to really quickly, so we're going to jump a certain part here. There's a lecture which stitches together the different things that we spoke about. I want to leave that to one of our makeup sessions because it just puts everything into perspective, right? Look at the different hardware components and then maybe try and understand exactly how, what happens when you're interacting with a computer. When you press a key, somebody asked this question, when you press a key, what actually happens? We'll skip that. For a makeup session, I want us to immediately transition to the computer architecture component, which is day after tomorrow. I'm looking at the time. I know people might have questions, but hold your horses. If you have questions day after tomorrow, please ask. If you can't hold on to the question, I do encourage you to send mail, right? Good luck with the quiz, which opens in the next 7 hours or something. 6 hours, actually. All right, I'm rushing for another class, and I'll see you day after tomorrow. If you have any concerns or questions when you're writing the quiz, if there's something that doesn't make sense or if you experience a problem, just shoot me an email. Thank you, and bye-bye.
Goodbye, sir.
Goodbye. Guys, see you when you see me.